In the age of noise, attention is currency. Everyone is competing for a few seconds of space in your mind, and leaders, professionals, and speakers don't just need to grab attention nowadays. They need to make their message mean something. Because attention without direction is like an arrow without a bow. It won't hit the target. Even if you try throwing it, it will probably land at your feet. Ever tried? Yeah, it's not really working. Same with your story. If your story doesn't have a structure, you might get people to lean in, even laugh or maybe not, but unless your message lands with them, nothing changes, and they don't say yes. Today, I'm going to give you that bow. Today, I'm going to walk you through a simple go-to 3-step storytelling formula that I teach all my clients and students. A simple framework so you can hook attention, inspire change, and support your message with purpose, starting today. Yep, today. And this will revolutionize your storytelling skills, my friend. Hi there, I'm Natasha, an actor and communication and public speaking coach, here to help you become a stronger and more impactful communicator by helping you enhance your communication skills to create connections that matter, one conversation at a time. Here's the thing. Most people can tell stories. We've all done it, over coffee and meetings, at the dinner table, but very few people know how to structure a story so that it drives action, creates influence, or inspires transformation. Without structure, storytelling becomes entertainment, and we all know how many bad movies there are nowadays. It might be charming, sure, it might be even moving, but it's just floating, superficial, forgettable. It's disconnected from any greater purpose. That's what happens when we tell stories just because we think they're good, and that is why we don't want to tell stories at work. But with structure, storytelling becomes powerful communication. It becomes strategic. It becomes anchored in your message. It creates connection and clarity. And that's what makes people not only remember what you said, but act on it. This is what separates confident communicators from impactful ones. And this is what we're going to build together today. So if you've ever wondered how to improve your storytelling skills, how to structure a story, or how to speak with confidence at work, this is for you. Why is everyone talking about storytelling, I hear you say? Because storytelling is not just a nice-to-have skill, it's a survival tool for the modern communicator. Here's why. Stories activate emotion. Stories help us retain information better, quicker, and for longer amounts of time. Stories create meaning where facts alone fall flat. Stories are how humans have passed on knowledge, values, and belonging for over 30,000 years. When you tell a story, you're not just sharing an experience, you're creating connection. And not just mouth to ear, brain to brain. You're inviting the brain into a stimulation. Neuroscientist Yuri Hassan at Princeton University calls this neurocoupling. When you tell a well-structured story, the listener's brain starts to mirror yours. The same areas of the brain light up in both the speaker and the listener, meaning that they are living the story with you. That's connection. That's influence. That is great storytelling. And that's going to be you, my friend. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman's research confirms it. He says, "We are neurologically wired for narrative. Stories aren't just a better way to communicate. They're the way we're designed to make sense of the world around us." Now, here's the catch. There isn't just one way to tell a story. I'm so sorry, there are so many. And each structure serves a different purpose depending on context, audience, and message. Let me just name a few so you get a little picture of how many there are. Just a few. There's the classic structure, the persuasive structure, the hero's journey, the SCR or SCQA from McKinsey. There's Pixar story spine. The biggest brands use them. The best speakers do too. Each one of these structures has its own rhythm and its use cases. And in future videos, I will walk you through them one by one if you're interested. Because mastering structure will give you not only total creative freedom, but also, my friend, so much more impact. Let me know in the comments below, which one of these storytelling frameworks would you like me to explore first? What do you use storytelling for? Is it for pitches, presentations, negotiation? Depending on why you use it most, I can give you the most impactful structure to go with it. But Let's move on to our 3-step formula of today. And here it is, the ABT formula. And, but, therefore. AB what? Let's go through each one of these steps together, shall we? The first part of a great story is the end. This is where you set the scene. In this part of your story, here's what you want to include. Location. Where are you? Ground the listener with sensory details so they can picture the scene. I was standing outside the building, rain soaking through my coat. Action. What are you doing? Describe the physical behavior to make the story dynamic and real. Like, I kept pacing back and forth, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Thinking. What's going on in your mind? Share your internal monologue to let us into your decision making. Something like, part of me wanted to walk away. Another part whispered to me, what if this is your shot? Emotions. How do you feel? Go beyond naming the emotion. Evoke it through physical or metaphorical descriptions. Like, it felt like my stomach had dropped to the floor and taken my voice with it. Dialogue. What was said? Bring in direct speech to give your story immediacy and authenticity. Something like, but if you walk away now, I thought, you may never know. So, let me give you an example of a story, step by step. So, first part, the A, right? ABT. And. In April 2024, my life was booming. I had gone through a few rough years since COVID to establish myself as both an actor and a coach. But things were starting to pick up. I had just signed with an agent, I was getting quite a few gigs in, things were going well. I was coming home from a coaching thinking, I think this is going well. Let's keep this going, let's keep pushing. This is the year. I felt excited. Even though tired, I felt like the sun was finally rising on my professional life. So, you see, you tell us where you were, what was happening, what you were thinking, what emotions you were feeling, and, if there is place for it, of course, put in a short dialogue, even if it means that you have to have been talking to yourself. This is the context, the world before the change. That's your and. It gives people a moment to arrive. It establishes the normal, the setting, the flow, the status quo, the point of reference. Most people overlook this part in storytelling, but it's absolutely essential. Because without a clear starting point, your audience can't recognize when things shift, when things change. They can't appreciate the conflict unless they first understand what was at stake before it. But here's a mistake that you'll never make again. Most people stop there. They share a series of events, what happened, and then what happened next, and then what happened after that, and then. But that's not a story. That's a timeline. It's flat, it's forgettable, and most importantly, it doesn't mean anything on its own. It's redundant. A story only becomes a story when something comes up to interrupt the normality of things. You wouldn't watch that film. You need normality and then an interruption. When the world suddenly changes, and there is, of course, psychological backing for this. Neurologically, we're wired to look for patterns and to notice when those patterns break. Hunters-gatherers, remember? But more recently than thousands of years ago, please come back to planet Earth, Letitia. A 2012 study published in Cognition found that people are more likely to remember an event when it breaks their expectations. But first, yes, you got it, they have to have expectations. You have to give them those expectations. So when you set the context clearly, you're helping your listener's brain from that baseline, those expectations. The moment you disrupt it later, with the second part of this framework, their attention spikes and they become emotionally invested in your story, which is exactly where you want them to be. Simply put, the more vividly and precisely you paint the starting point, the more powerful the transformation will feel later. So don't skip it. Don't rush through it. Don't think it's boring. Don't think, well, they got that bit and I only have 10 minutes. No, my friend. No. Don't make that mistake. Your audience isn't waiting for the drama. It's waiting to care. Drama without caring, it doesn't touch us. We don't care. And the and is where they begin to care, before you break it. And now you've got them hooked. If this is already helping you think differently about how you tell stories, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I am so looking forward to reading them. Or click on that like button to tell me that you've made it this far. Alrighty, so we've got our context, the world before change, the and. Now you know what comes next. Yes, my friend, here comes the disruption. Here comes the but. And no, not that but, the rhetorical one. Stay with me, people. This is where the rupture happens. Something disrupts the normal flow of life. And this moment, this break, is what actually turns your little anecdote into a real story. Let's go back to our example from April 2024. I was coming home from a coaching thinking, I think this is going well. Let's keep this going. Let's keep pushing. This is the year. I felt excited, even though tired. I felt like the sun was finally rising on my professional life. But then, suddenly, while I was sitting in the metro on my way back, I felt this sharp, blasting pain in my temple. Wow, I thought. Whoa, that's painful. I had been lucky enough to never had migraines before in my life, but then and there, I thought, okay, so this is what a migraine feels like. Unbeknown to me then, and something I discovered a few days later while I was lying on an emergency hospital bed, I was having a burnout, and my body had chosen to materialize it through a viral attack in my left eye. It took me down completely. For a whole month, I couldn't get out of bed. My body wanted me to stop running around, so it had taken my sight. No ice, no running. My body won, I was immobilized. That's the but. That's what makes people lean in. That's what makes the brain say, wait, something's happening, I need to pay attention. Why does this matter? Because without conflict, there's no urge, there's no need. And without a need, there's no tension, no reason to act, no reason to change, no reason to listen. And without change, there is no transformation. And without transformation, there is no message. Nothing to take away from this story that you're telling. And without a message, your story might be nice, even entertaining, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. And that is why you don't want to use it in word presentations, because you don't know if it will lead anywhere. It's useless. It just floats like a balloon without a string. Beautiful, yeah, sure, but meaningless and untouchable. Now, this is where a lot of people hesitate. They say, but I don't want to be dramatic, it's just a word presentation, or there wasn't a massive crisis in that moment. And I get it. Not every story is about a pumpkin turning into a chariot, a car crash, in a police pursuit, or a job loss, or even a divorce. But every meaningful story has a shift, even a slight one, a moment of discomfort, of tension, choice, uncertainty, resistance. That's your conflict. And here's the thing. Brené Brown says, people connect with you through your struggle, not your success. And she's right, because that's where we see you. That's where you become a human. That's where trust is built. Not when everything's perfect. That's boring. No one cares about that because, some people might even get jealous. But when it's real, they care because they see themselves in you. Our brains are wired to connect through emotion, not just information. It's not the facts that hook us, it's feeling. And when something unexpected happens in a story, something uncommon, when the expected pattern that we set up in the first part breaks, your brain releases dopamine. It perks up, it pays attention. And we, my friends, love dopamine. We are crazy for it. So, if you want your audience to get that reaction, for them to care about your story, this is where you lead them in, the but. And here's how to do it. Let us feel the break. Don't just say what happened. Don't talk. Show. Show what went wrong. Show what made you pause or panic or question everything. Revisit that moment, feel it, and make your audience feel it too. What was the decision? What was the fear? What was that moment that changed how you saw things? What was the exciting thing? What made you overjoyed? Because this is where your audience starts to move with you. Let me give you some prompts that you can use to build this part of your story. But then something happened that changed everything. That's when I realized I was wrong. I froze. I didn't know what to do next. That's when the conflict really began. Again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be true-ish. Conflict can be quiet, internal, a simple choice, a simple little voice in your head, but it has to be there. It has to be present to make your story stick. Trust me, just do it. You'll see. The but is the tension your message will resolve later. So build it carefully. Give us the tiny crack in the wall before you show us the light. And just like in a good movie, this is where people stop scrolling. This is where they commit to the journey with you. They zone in. If this is starting to click with you and you're already thinking about the conflicts in your own stories, download the free storytelling template I linked below. It's designed to help you map this all out clearly. And while you're at it, give the video a thumbs up if you haven't yet, and comment "zone in" if you made it this far. Okay, people, we've done the first two steps. We've set the context, the and, we've broken it open with the conflict, the but. Here comes the third and final step. Now comes the turning point, the meaning maker. This is where your story becomes useful, strategic, and impactful, where everything you said suddenly makes sense. Make room for the therefore. And let me tell you, this is where most people fumble the ball. Because instead of landing the story, they start rambling, lost in the list of buts that they're trying to solve. They slip into one of the most boring traps in storytelling, the word then. You know what I mean? And then I went home, and then I had dinner, and then I watched Netflix. That's not a story. That's a grocery list. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't mean anything. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, put it perfectly. If your story goes, and then, it dies. But if your story goes, but, therefore, then it lives. The therefore is your story's point of arrival. It's the moment of insight, of choice, of change. It's the moment that ties everything together and makes the story do what you want it to do, serve the message. So, let's go back to the example that we started. For a whole month, I couldn't get out of bed. My body wanted me to stop running around, so it had taken my sight. No ice, no running. My body won. I was immobilized. But then, yes, very good, my friend, you got it. No. Therefore, I decided I was going to accept that time my body was giving me. Instead of fighting, I decided to lean in. My body was trying to tell me something. Look. So I went through every part of my life that had put me there, down, immobilized, in bed. The pressure, not only from work, but from others. By being too nice and accepting everything that came to me, I had become a pushover. That was the truth. People had mistaken my kindness for weakness. I was not prioritizing the things and the people that I was spending time with wisely. So I started on a journey of self-assertiveness, learning to be kinder to myself and to set boundaries. Especially set boundaries, knowing when to work and knowing when to stop working, knowing when to let go and learning when to put my foot down and fight back with both my eyes. And not only looking, but seeing really clearly now. And that is what I want to give to everyone, sight and a voice. Now that's a story, because it's not just about something happening. It's about something shifting, something changing. It's about a need being met or unmet, and a decision being made in response to it. This is what gives the story its spine. The therefore is the resolution, but not in a fairy tale sense. They lived happily ever after thing. No, it's the moment where what you faced becomes what you learned, what you or your product became. The transformational elixir, where your vulnerability that you just went through in the conflict section number 2 becomes added value, becomes the very reason you're standing here today, the very reason you are you today. And that therefore your struggle becomes strategy. And here's the key. Your therefore must point back to your message. Carmine Gallo calls this story message alignment in his book Talk Like TED. The most compelling communicators use stories not as decoration, not as filler, but as proof. Proof that their message holds weight, that it's being lived, that it means something. And the best part? When your story is structured this way, when the therefore emerges clearly, you never need to say, moral of the story is, or worse, the dreaded, that's it. Oh, I hate that. You never need to say it because they feel it. They get it. It lands. You've just sent out your arrow, bang in the middle, and your bow is ready to be used again, primed and ready. So here's how you use this 3-step formula effectively in your life. Before you use a story in a meeting, a pitch, or presentation, ask yourself, what is this story really about? Does the change in this story reflect the point that I want to make? What insight is the story delivering? Because if your story doesn't change your character or your product or your service, it won't change your audience. And if it doesn't tie back to your message, you've missed the opportunity to lead with clarity and impact. So remember, a story that ends in therefore is a story that teaches, a story that moves, a story that stays with people after you've stopped speaking. And that's what you're here for. Not just to be heard, but to be remembered. Are you still here? Comment therefore below to let me know. Also, if you are still here and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Get over here. Because you are still here, I want to thank you by giving out a cheeky little bonus tip. Because, my friends, here's where it gets even better. A good story has structure, sure, but a skeleton with muscles? Nah, not much to say. But add a heart, a beating one, and it starts living. A story is the same. It needs structure, movement, but it also needs depth. And this is where emotional texture comes in. That means we don't just hear what you did, we feel what you felt. Let me show you the difference. Option 1, I was scared. Option 2, I felt my throat tighten. I heard my heartbeat in my ears. It was thumping. It was beating so fast. I thought it was going to jump out of my chest. Every part of me wanted to run away, but I froze completely. I just couldn't move. Same emotion, completely different impact. The clearer you are about what you felt, the more your audience can meet you there. It's not about telling them and just stating the emotion. I was scared, or I was angry, or I was happy. It's about reliving through the emotion physically, allowing your audience to visualize it, to feel empathy, and to feel the emotion for themselves with you. Because when we witness emotion in others, real emotions, not fake ones, our brains engage more deeply. We mirror what we see. Yes, my friend, the famous mirror neurons. This is empathy in action. So, when you tell your story, what were you thinking? Say it out loud in the present tense. What were you afraid of? What made you happy? What did it make you feel physically? What were the signs? What did it feel like to be in that mode? Your vulnerability here becomes your power. So here's a practical exercise you can do right now. Take a story from your work or from your personal life. Add one internal thought, one fear, one hesitation. That's emotional texture. You go, team. All right, that's it for today, my friends. Let's recap quickly what we've seen today. A powerful story isn't just about events, it's about transformation. And that transformation lives inside a clear structure. And the world as it is and was the initial context, but the rupture, the challenge, the turning point. Therefore, the insight, the shift, the message, the world as it is now, the new world. And when you add emotional texture, your story doesn't just spark people's ears, it moves people. With a little training and a lot of practice, that's what story can be. Strategic, emotionally intelligent, purpose-driven communication. So, now I want to hear from you. What do you use storytelling for? What is the feeling that you want to leave your audience with? And which storytelling structure should I break it down next? The persuasive structure, the hero's journey, the SCQA, the SCR, Apple spread out pitch, DreamWorks or Pixar? Drop it in the comments below, and I'll make one to go deeper into the specific structures to give you actionable frameworks to build your presentations on. And if you want to continue your storytelling development journey, watch the next video that comes up on your screen. Subscribe, share, like, and remember, you're not just telling stories, you're reclaiming your right to speak. I'll see you in the next video, my friend. But until then, as usual, follow your passion and speak up. Ciao, ciao.